The story of how California became American begins with Texas. When the United States annexed Texas in 1845, it set off a chain of events driven by President James K. Polk, who had won office promising continental expansion. Polk wanted California, New Mexico, and the land in between, by negotiation if he could, by force if he had to. When diplomacy failed, he deliberately provoked a confrontation along the disputed Texas-Mexico border. The war began in April 1846 when Mexican cavalry attacked U.S. troops in contested territory. Polk told Congress that Mexico had, in his words, shed American blood on American soil, and Congress declared war. But this was controversial from the start. The Whig opposition, including a young congressman named Abraham Lincoln, challenged both the legality of how Polk had started the war and the truth of his claims about where the fighting began. In fact, the House later voted to censure Polk for having started the war unnecessarily and unconstitutionally. In California itself, the fighting was swift and limited. U.S. forces seized Monterey, the capital, in July 1846. The so-called Bear Flag Republic, a brief independence declaration by American settlers in Sonoma, was folded into the U.S. military command within weeks. General Stephen Kearny's Army of the West arrived overland, and after a sharp fight with California lancers at the Battle of San Pasqual, U.S. forces controlled California by January of 1847. The real war was fought far to the south, in central Mexico, where General Winfield Scott captured Mexico City in September 1847. The cost was brutal. About 1,500 American soldiers died in combat, but at least 10,000 died of disease. The war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed in February 1848. Under its terms, Mexico ceded roughly 525,000 square miles, the land that would become California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. In exchange, the United States paid $15 million. The treaty promised to protect the property and rights of Mexican citizens who stayed, but those promises proved largely worthless, as California families were systematically stripped of their land grants in the decades that followed. And here's the astonishing coincidence of timing. Gold had been discovered at Sutter's Mill on January 24, 1848, just 9 days before the treaty was signed. The gold rush was about to remake California overnight. Within 2 years, the territory would be admitted to the Union, not as a slave state, but as a free one, under the Compromise of 1850. The California we recognize was about to be born,